What do you think the future of a creative agency slash studio looks like?
Oh my God, that's going to be insane. We want to continue to have creative people doing creative work. Automation allows us to remove all of that manual grunt work. And when you remove all of that, you get to stay in flow longer. You get to get more high leverage work done.
I know that a lot of my clients feel that AI and automation can take away the personalization. What are your thoughts on that?
We're not trying to replace any of the creative work because the creative work is what makes us uniquely human. Whether you are starting out or you're just a new creative or you're an experienced agency owner, you have a unique skill. AI allows you to amplify that.
It's about what are all the things that come in between us and doing our best work? How can we use AI and automation to eliminate as much of that as possible?
You're going to want to go to
How much time do you spend working in your zone of genius? You know, the things that you really enjoy doing, the things that come easily and naturally to you, and how much time do you spend on the day-to-day admin tasks in your business? In today's episode, we get deep into AI and automation. I am talking to Grant Hushek, whose business specializes in helping marketing and creative agencies to grow and scale without increasing their headcount. Today is an incredibly interesting conversation, and I'm actually going to be listening back to the podcast myself because there was so much value packed into today. So whether you've dabbled with AI and automation a little bit or you're brand new, I guarantee you will get something from today and you will start thinking differently about how you run your business. As always, if you found this episode valuable, please hit the subscribe button and share it with a friend. Grant, on your website, it says scaling teams without scaling headcount. Can you just tell me a little bit more about how that's possible?
When we think about scaling a team, a lot of people think that it's an amount of work that gets done, and I would agree with them. I think the way that we view it is that we want to continue to have creative people doing creative work and have problem solvers doing problem solving work without any of the copy and paste in between. And so automation allows us to remove all of that manual grunt work that anyone on your team can do. And when you remove all of that, you get to stay in flow longer. You get to get more high leverage work done. And that is how you're going to scale out your actual production capacity in your company. So that's where the scaling the team or the production capacity comes without adding more people. We're just letting people do what they enjoy doing. They get to have more fun, do better work, and that creates better quality work.
Amazing. And so if you think about a typical creative studio, what are some of the things that automation and AI could be taking care of that aren't that fun for the founder to do?
Let's start from the top, right? Someone comes into your business through a lead gen form or a referral or something. We can start with sales because everyone loves more revenue. So someone comes in and you grab their company URL, or if you don't even get that, you get their email and you can take their email domain. We can now have automations go to that website, scrape what's on there, identify what do they do, for who, what's their unique value prop, what market do they operate in, how big is the company. We can do a lot of that work just with a simple zap, like a Zapier automation, over to the website, grab the information. And then on the AI side, we use AI automated workflows to throw that information from the landing page into a Claude prompt, an OpenAI prompt, and say, get all those answers. What does this company do? How can we qualify that? Are they my ICP, my ideal customer profile? We can do all of that research in the snap of a finger, just understanding what is their website URL. So qualifying a lead, which would normally take time to go over, read all that information, understand what's the pitch going to be, you can do all of that prep work or all that qualification work without even lifting a finger. So that way, when it shows up in your Google Sheet or your CRM, whatever it ends up, whatever you're using right now, it's going to come in with that qualification tag. And that's going to save you a ton of time right off the bat because you know either before you get on a call or if you even want to take the call, is this person my ICP? So that right out of the gate to help you generate more leads or I guess service the leads that are coming in faster, speed to lead, that's going to help you right out of the gate.
Yeah, love that. So we'll dive down into each one of these, but so top level sales and marketing, handling inbound leads. Because I know a lot of people, for example, I've got clients who run video production studios, and one of the things that they struggle with is if a lead comes in, when they're out on a shoot, it's often a long time before they actually get around to following it up. And I know from data and research that the faster you follow up with a lead, the higher the probability of closing that deal is. So we've got things like that on the kind of sales and marketing front, which I know a lot of people will be interested in, and we can dig down into a bit more. What other areas of my business could be automated, or how could AI help me to scale in other areas of the business without hiring more people?
After working with so many agencies and studios like the ones you're talking about and the people who are listening to this right now, we really identified that there are four main processes in a B2B service business. So that's going to be sales, the CRM, winning projects. Then it's client onboarding, launching those projects, project management, fulfilling the projects, and invoicing or billing, collecting project revenue. So inside of those four buckets, there's so much that we can do just to reduce that copy and paste, little manual task, little distractions and context switches that happen every day. We're trying to remove as many of those as possible. And I can get into examples for each of those, but the two really big areas of opportunity are going to be in that sales and marketing department and then in project management. Because in an agency or a studio, those are the two largest, I guess you can call them like sets of data or sources of truth in the business. It's how do we win the projects and how do we fulfill the projects? And there's so much data around that, which means there's so much copy and paste that happens every day. And as someone who's worn all of the hats and now kind of, I call it like cutting off a part of myself, like I've cut off some of the BDR work, I've cut off some of the project management work. I know how much copy and paste goes into that. So when you can remove that stuff and then put someone else on it on your team and delegate, it's like you're giving yourself superpowers, you're giving that person superpowers. There's so much that can get done because they don't get sucked into those little distractions. They can just stay on the high leverage stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive into sales and marketing, because I know that's something that a lot of people listening to this podcast will be interested in. It's almost like the bane of most kind of agencies' life, in the sense that although they're good at what they do and they often get referrals, there's a lack of predictability in that business development cycle. And obviously, you know this as well. But typically, what happens is people get busy, they deliver the work, and then they stop prospecting or stop doing business development. And then they come to the end of that project and they go, oh, where's our next project going to come from? And although there might be some inquiries in the pipeline or some referrals or whatever, they're not always ideal projects. And so we kind of have this stressful period where we're thinking about how we get new work. And so how could AI and automation solve a problem like that, for example, do you think?
We've gone through so many iterations of what are the ways that we can get people interested in automation, because for so many people, cost saving is not a sexy topic, right? Lead generation, getting more deals definitely is. So I love that we're talking about this. One of the really great areas of opportunity right now with AI is using a meeting note taker and using that to find content ideas, because it's no secret that getting organic content out there, not only is it free, but it has unlimited upside. You can have an unlimited number of followers. There are people with 500,000, 1 million, however many, but you don't need that many. And it's always that conversation of like, especially relevant with a podcast, if you have 300 people that love your podcast, you get 300 downloads, and they're all your ideal customers, that's an amazing like setup that you have. So I always think about that when I think about content, not to go down the tangent of metrics and everything, but how can I be helpful, right? So if you use a meeting note taker, I recommend Fathom a lot, and the other ones in the market would be something like Fireflies or Circleback. There are a lot of tools out there. I love Fathom because when you get the transcript, it has the speaker name and it has the timestamp, and that is really good information for the AI to understand who's talking and at what depth in the conversation. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take that meeting transcript and you're going to throw it into any of the LLM tools. You can do this manually to start while you work out your prompts. You can do it automatically, which is really nice about Fathom. It has a Zapier integration. But you're going to take that transcript and you're going to ask for what are the topics that my ideal customer would ask or would find interesting in this conversation. And so you're not asking it, what did I talk about? You're asking it to pretend to be, for me, the marketing agency owner, pretend to be the Amazon, Facebook marketplace manager at a company, whoever your ICP is, right? Ask it to pretend to be that, and then read the transcript and say, what did I talk about that was interesting? It's going to pull out a few topics. And then you go through those topics and you say, okay, great, let's build this out. Like, what was the interesting root nugget? Let's turn that into a hook. Let's work on the hook. And the whole topic that I'm swirling around here is like, the meeting recordings that we have, they're one to one, just like this one, but there's so much gold in there when you're doing a sales call or you're doing a fulfillment call or you're doing a team call. Every single call, you are saying interesting things, but we don't think about it. We don't think, oh, I should go put that on LinkedIn because it's just not part of our process. But when you have all of your transcripts being run through this, you're going to get a lot more ideas. And if you get 3 ideas from every call you're on, you're set for the week, for the month, pretty quick, right? So tying it all together here, if you're using your transcripts, which isn't taken from an AI tool, you're running it through an LLM, you're getting content ideas and you're putting that out there on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whatever it is, whatever platform you choose, that's going to help generate leads for you. And I've already seen it successful for myself. Then if you have any, if we want to, we can go into some more inbound automations to really provide value from the jump and make sure that we have good speed to lead. And we can talk about all that stuff too. But it starts with people need to know you exist. And organic content is free. You can do it, pretty straightforward. Get a meeting recording tool, use the transcripts. That's going to help a ton. It's helped me unbelievable amounts.
Yeah, Fathom is an incredible tool. I remember when it first came out, I was pretty blown away, but it's advanced a lot now, and it's now got the Ask Fathom feature as well, which is kind of like ChatGPT built into the transcript. So one of the things that we've been using it for is in our coaching. Once we have a coaching call, I can ask Fathom, just remind me, like, what were the biggest insights or takeaways from this conversation? What were the action items that we agreed on? And it's like saving so much time. But the content piece is really powerful, because I know one of the key things that a lot of founders say to me is we just don't really have time to create content, or I don't really know what to say. And I think people feel like they have to just post about their work on LinkedIn, or, hey, by the way, we do this amazing thing. Look at us. Aren't we great? But as we know, marketing really is about putting yourself in your ideal client's shoes and being able to articulate their world and their problems better than they can, so that they see you as the guide and the person to actually help them solve those problems. And so I think I saw earlier, you've actually got a free tool on your website that does this, right?
Yep, exactly. It's called Call to Content. Easy enough name. Take your call transcripts, throw it into a form, and we'll email you 3 LinkedIn posts just to show you what's possible. And it's without any of like the fine tuning or the onboarding parameters we get, but it's helpful right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, from my perspective, when I'm thinking about this as a tool, one of the key points here is obviously the quality of the data. So if you're getting on a call with a client and you're not asking particularly powerful questions, or you're not asking the right questions, then you won't get the output really that's going to attract more of those clients. And so I think what's an interesting point to just raise here is the frameworks and the questions and the things that you're actually asking your ideal clients are really important, because if you ask them a question that uncovers some kind of insight, then obviously you can use that in your content. But if you're asking them very surface level questions, then you're just going to get surface level content, right?
Exactly. Quality in, quality out, for sure. And the other thing I'll talk about real quick is that the content, I think a lot of people think when they hear I need to be posting case studies, they think it's got to have to be some 80% increase in top line revenue over 4 days. It's like that, A, that's insane. But B, a case study for LinkedIn can really just be like, we identified that they weren't clicking the highlight button on Fathom. And so we showed them how to use the highlight feature. And now their meeting transcripts are significantly better and more useful for the strategists. Like, a case study doesn't have to be this monumental achievement. It can literally be, I provided value in this little point solution, because you never know who's going to read that. And you never know who's going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that we could do that with Fathom. What else does this guy know? Boom, I'm going to DM him, or I'm going to book a call. Like, don't get so caught up in thinking that it has to be this monumental 6-month implementation that related to a beautiful new website. It's like, yeah, those are great, but those come every 6 months, right? You can have a lot of small wins. And again, that's what transcripts are really good at finding.
Yeah, I love the idea of these smaller problems, these kind of little nuggets of wisdom almost, because often, like you said, they're the things that are the breadcrumbs that make people want to find out more. And I know I've been guilty in this in my content, going like too high level or too deep, or talking about everything about building a creative agency rather than just like, oh, do you do this with your business development? Like, are you doing this in your cold outreach messages? And really kind of just giving that little tip that gives somebody that light bulb moment where you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that in that way. And now all of a sudden I see Matt or I see Grant as this kind of expert, or at least this thought leader, or this person who has some kind of insight that maybe I don't have.
Totally. I always say happy to be helpful. And I think that if you translate that over to your content strategy, if you're just happy to be putting things out that could be slightly helpful just to the one right person every time, maybe it's going to fall on deaf ears. God knows I'm not getting a lead from every single LinkedIn post, but if you can try to be helpful or add value with one little tip, one little thing, one little story, that's what's going to eventually lead to a healthier pipeline. And with organic content, I'm not going to say that there's some repeatability, like where you can say for every 5 posts, I'm going to get one lead, like maybe with paid ads, you might be able to do. I haven't hit that magical point yet. I hope that it exists, but I'm on my way, and I encourage anyone to start that journey too.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But obviously, the best way for people to try that out is to literally go to your website and use that tool, and get some output just to see as an example. If they're obviously not using something like Fathom or any kind of note taker right now, then obviously that's the first thing. I'm always surprised when I talk to creative agencies that, they don't have a CRM, they're not using any kind of like AI note taker or anything like that. So I think that's the first thing to really install, because like you said, a lot of those insights are right there in that conversation. But once we finish the conversation, we kind of forget what we've spoken about, or I remember before these AI transcripts having to literally go back through the whole video and try and find the kind of key talking points, and how could we turn that into a case study, or how could we make that into some content? So step one is get yourself Fathom. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. It's a great tool. It's not that expensive. There's a free version, and I think the paid version is maybe like $20 a month or something. So it's not a lot of money. Then use Grant's tool on his website to get that transcript and turn it into some content. And then, you have some content posts. And obviously, I think one of the things that is worth talking about in today's conversation is people's feeling towards AI in general. And I know that a lot of my clients feel that AI and automation can take away the personalization of client management, project management, lead generation. What are your thoughts on that?
I come into these conversations, usually the founder is the one that hires my agency. And then I just jump on a call with a marketing strategist or someone who makes paid ads. And they're like, A, no context on what we do. B, assuming that we're here to take their jobs. So I imagine this is a very similar sentiment to what some people have expressed to you. And the way I look at it is, we're not trying to replace any of the creative work, because the creative work is what makes us uniquely human. If you want to get really meta on it, it's like a computer is doing a lot of ones and zero crunching in the background. That's great. It's great at that. But it's not that creative emotional connection that we have when we think about, okay, someone's scrolling on Facebook and they're aware of a problem with, dry cough, whatever. And so they're thinking about, what is the emotion that I can put into all of that? That is a very human to human experience. I want to get people doing more of that. And so when we look at automation and AI, we're really thinking about how can we remove everything that's not that. And so when I, work with our clients, when I work with people that join our team, I always ask, what would be an ideal day? What are the things that you're working on? What is the creative muscle that you want to flex? Let's make that the focus and remove everything else. So it's almost like addition by subtraction. Let's subtract out all of the copy and paste, all of the data movement that's happening. And you can think about, like, if copy and paste is data movement from platform A to platform B, what AI allows you to do is say, I'm going to move that data from platform A to platform B. But now that data is going to undergo some sort of change. So maybe it's a decision, maybe it's categorization, maybe it's analysis, whatever it ends up being. We're moving data and we're interpreting it in a way. And that's just one level up the decision-making hierarchy. But we don't want to touch the creative work. Like, yes, we can show you about the new image generation and you can use that for your creative process, but I don't want to remove anyone, because that's what makes you. That's what makes your quality of service so good. So from that perspective, it's really, I think that addition by subtraction is like removing the negative space. That's the way I think about it. And that's what we want to do with all of our clients.
Yeah, we talk about it as working in your zone of genius, What are the things that are unique to you in terms of the combination of skills? What are the things that feel easy to you? What are the things that put you in flow? And I support anything that allows us to do more of that. I think a lot of creatives' concern is really about relationships in terms of the way they manage clients, also the way they generate leads and answer inquiries. I know that people have a lot of resistance around, well, if that inquiry comes in and AI answers it, they're going to know there's AI, and then maybe they're going to go and speak to somebody else. Or, like AI can't do as good a job as I can. And it's really important for me to have that like deep personal connection with my clients.
A great example of this would be when someone has a sales call with me. We have a little bot that says, hey, I think that this was a sales call. So again, taking Fathom, reading it, deciding if it was a sales call. Step one, send a Slack message to me with 2 buttons, yes or no. If yes, it goes and drafts a follow-up email. Now, I think this is the really important part, is like, I know that I'm going to know my tone and my relationship with this lead better than the AI would. So that's why we do drafting, right? We're not going to send that email automatically. So I'm going to make a nice draft with the key points and the areas of opportunity, just the way that I would have liked. And it nails that section. But what I want to do is make sure that the first 2 sentences are genuinely me. So the template is usually around like, hey, glad that we went deep on automation and AI. Really excited about your potential. Sometimes that's a good thing to say. Let's say 80% of the time it's not. I want to, like, I'll put in a joke to carry on from the call, or I'll make it personal about how we met, or whatever it ends up being. That's the human aspect of it. But I don't need 80%. Like, the AI is crushing what their priorities were and what the opportunity areas are. So I don't need to go and retype that. So it's one of those things. I don't know if you've read, I think it's Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. He says like 80% done is 100% awesome. And it's the same thing for AI. So 80% of my email is done. I don't need to go touch that. And I just do the last 20%. That's awesome. So just remember that when you're thinking about some of these processes, like, there's a lot of opportunity to get 80% done, 20% you, and you are the special spice mix. You are the special sauce that's going to make this uniquely your brand, your tone, you, and that's okay. You take advantage of the technology to get 80% done, because that's a huge time saving.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from this is AI is really about doing the heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. It's not about trying to replace us or our creativity or our personality. It's about what are all the things that come in between us and doing our best work, and how can we use AI and automation to eliminate as much of that as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And it can also help with some of the strategy stuff too. Like, we talked about the Ask Fathom feature. We do about 10 hours of calls with teams before we start doing any sort of recommendations. So we really get deep on their processes. And I imagine a lot of the creative studios out there are doing something similar. They're really understanding their brand over multiple calls. And so what we do is we use now the Notebook LM, Google's Notebook LM. And so you can combine a bunch of transcripts, and this is a bit manual, but it's fine. It's worth it. I take the transcript, I put it in a Google Doc. I put the Google Doc into the notebook. Okay. So let's say there's 5 transcripts in the notebook. What this allows you to do is make a podcast about your relationship or this engagement, which you can easily share with someone on your team, catch them up to speed, 20 minutes. Awesome. That's a win. Then you have another option to create a mind map. So in our case, all the different parts of the business we're looking at, it'll nail the mind map and say, this is the CRM stuff. This is the client onboarding stuff. This is the project management stuff. And I can see the expansive like layers of that. That's amazing. And I can then ask questions and say, hey, what were the 5 biggest pain points across the entire team, all 5 hours of these calls? This is the heavy lifting that, like, I'm going to go do the strategic implementation of these are the pain points. Let me connect them to the solutions. But it is surfacing 5 hours worth of calls. Like, that's incredible. And I will say, before you get too carried away, because there is always a devil's advocate to this stuff, I still make sure that everyone on my team that's going to be working on these engagements watches all 5 hours, because they also need to have the understanding of when the eyes light up. That doesn't show up in a transcript, right? They need to understand like explain more. Like, those things don't show up in transcripts. So they still need to have that effectively like face-to-face interaction and knowledge of the situation. But the heavy lifting of surfacing the important ideas, when you have the background, you can use so much of this technology just to surface what you're looking for, instead of saying, I think it was at the 30-minute mark halfway through this call. I gotta figure out, was it call 2 or call 3? Like, no, those days are done. So that's another way that this stuff is just helping us tremendously.
Based on that, what do you think the future of a creative agency slash studio looks like, let's say in 3 to 5 years' time?
Oh my gosh. For a creative studio or creative agency, it's like when we look at the latest image release from OpenAI, we can create hyper realistic. We can create things like combine this product with this color scheme on this, person that's wearing a toothpaste costume. Like, it's incredible. So the speed of iteration, I think, is going to improve drastically, which means from a onboarding call to your first 5 ad sets, you might be looking at an hour and a half if you don't have back-to-back calls, right? And that's going to make the service feel really pristine. And it'll raise questions from the client side and say, like, can we hire someone that can do this and do it in-house? And maybe that becomes a more cost-effective method. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be the human psychology and the combination of my experience as a marketer and my understanding of human psychology that's going to make these ads worth it. So, like, yes, I can combine, the toothpaste costume with John Travolta and, holding an orange. Okay, cool. I can do that now. That's great. But does that mean that that's what's going to actually work on the platform? So I'd say the speed of iteration goes up a ton. Do we know what the image models are going to look like in 3 to 5 years? Absolutely not. Do we know what the video generation is going to look like? Oh my God, that's going to be insane. Like, we can do 10 seconds of video right now, and we have a project that we're trying to stitch together a bunch of 10-second clips to make a 10-minute YouTube video. It's a pain in the butt. In 5 years, there's no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to do full-length scenes, right? If you wanted to. So I think creating video is going to be a completely different game altogether. So short form video on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of those things, you'll be able to create them with AI now. I also think there's going to need to be some sort of AI watermark. I think that is just going to be essential. I don't know who's going to be the governing body that does that, but I feel like that's going to happen. So lots of rambling ideas there, but long story short, speed of iteration goes up, but the real value is still going to be, are you connecting with your audience? Do you have that human psychology side of it? Because I don't know if the models or the people who are controlling the models that skill is still necessary to create something useful.
Yeah. The speed of iteration thing is really interesting, especially with your background at Hampton. And I just wonder how you think that might affect what it means to be creative. And I'll give you a little bit more context on this. So there's the idea of somebody who has like a portfolio of lots of different projects and lots of different things. So someone might be a photographer and also love DJing and be into their music and, also be into tech. And one of the strategies in the past that I've helped people to implement is combining those things and finding the sort of sweet spot in the middle that makes them unique. Now, I still think that that's valuable, but one of the biggest barriers to being a kind of portfolio creative, there's a specific term for it, which is escaping me right now, but it's somebody who has like lots of different things going on. The reason I'm talking about this is because this idea of speed to iteration, do you think that therefore means that in the future it's going to be easier to be a multi-hyphenate creative? That's the word I was looking for. A multi-hyphenate creative, somebody who has lots of different things going on. Because like, think about now with things like, is it called vibe coding, where you like code stuff and you're not actually building it, you're just like talking to it and you're just giving it prompts and it's building stuff. So things like vibe coding, things like the speed of image generation, how fast you can iterate that, how easy you can run ads. Based on your experience, like at Hampton, which for people that don't know what Hampton is, it's basically a private network for high growth founders, right? So it's all about fast growth companies, predominantly in tech. Based on what you learned there and what you saw, what do you think the future is for startups and like how we launch products and ideas?
So I'll tackle this in 2 ways. One is on the skill level and one is on the company level. And I'll tie in Hampton too. So on the skill level, having one person have all of these skills, you can kind of take an inch and give a mile, right? AI gives you that extra mile. So if you have an idea for an ad, now you have 10 ads, right? You have an idea for the caption. Now you have 10 options. And you can even make historical direct response copywriters, battle it out as to which one's going to be the best, right? So there's so much you can do there. So on a skill level, one person can do all the departments which they didn't have traditional skills in. So for me, I have automation. Maybe now I can also run my LinkedIn ads. I can run all of these different parts of the business. I can do finance analysis with data analysis on ChatGPT, et cetera. So from that perspective, yes, having all of these extended skill sets, I 100% believe in, right? So that means that you might be able to have the one person $10 million company or $1 billion company. I think that's like, it's kind of inevitable at this point that technology is going to allow one person to really push the ceiling. And that's already happening. Smaller teams are going further and further. So that side for sure. But what I'll caution people on, and this is the lesson I got from Hampton, was that the majority of Hampton founders were still on their first company or their main company. Maybe not their first company, they were on their main company. And then there was, let's say 30% that had a portfolio of businesses. And the lesson I got from them was you have to hit the one thing really, really hard, really passionately, persistently, with great work ethic, and make that a star. And then you can go and do the other things. So if you are going to pursue an idea, the advice remains the same, whether you are a multi-hyphenate or you have one skill and you bring in people for everything. Crush the first business. Get it to what you monetarily think of as success. And whether you sell it or you put in a management layer that's going to protect your time, whatever success looks like for you, crush the first one with your multi-hyphenate skills. And then you can look at playing in a completely new arena where you have you want to go vibe code a SaaS company? Awesome. Do that once you've already taken full advantage of the skills you have at your core, set up your nest egg, and then go and pursue the next thing. And I joke with my wife, it's like, I love GrantBot. I'm going to be working on this for multiple years to come. I don't know if I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, but I also know that I have other businesses I want to start. So it's like that shiny object. You need to stay away from that until you've really crushed the thing that you're on and you feel good about that and it's set you up financially. And then you can go use the AI extension of yourself and your skills to go pursue either more within the current thing or new things. But just my cautionary tale from Hampton, it's like these people all got into Hampton, $1 to $3 million in revenue minimum. They got there because they nailed that first company, not because they were doing 5 different things.
Do you still think that advice is going to be relevant in 12 to 18 months' time?
Yeah, because focus is everything, right? Like if you are focused on one ICP, one lead channel for that one company, delivering one awesome product that is answering that one problem or 5 problems for the same person, right? You're expanding your product or service. The focus on that one thing will never age out, right? I think that if you spend all of your waking hours thinking about one person that you're trying to help, you will get better results than if you are extending yourself to 5 different problems across 5 different niches. And yes, it's possible, but 20% of your effort on everything is not good. And the other thing I tell people is when I was leaving Hampton, 60% of my time was on Hampton, 60% of my time was on GrantBot. What does that leave me? Burnt out. So it's like, you got to be careful about how you allocate your time. You can place bets. Everything is bets at the end of the day, but I would bet on one thing and go really hard on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know it's something that creatives really struggle with, especially on the niching front, trying to solve too many problems for too many different people. And that usually leaves them pretty burnt out and a little bit stuck. I've talked a lot about that on this podcast, so I won't go too much into it. I want to talk about onboarding in a minute in the context of AI and automation. But before we do that, can you just tell me the little story, or can you tell us the little story you told me about how you were the first employee at Hampton, like how that came about?
Yeah, it's a fun one. So I was scrolling Twitter, saw Sam Parr, who's the host of My First Million, another podcast, which I listen to regularly, he had posted a Google form. It was like, hey, if you want to hang out with other founders, fill out this form. I was like, oh, I'm a founder. I was working on a sports betting hedge fund, which did not work out clearly. And I was like, I'm a founder. Let's apply. So I fill out the form. I do a call with Sam's business partner, Joe. And I'm in this call and he goes, hey, what's your revenue? What's your funding? Zero. And he's like, okay, it's going to be $3,000 a year to do the membership. Can you afford that? And I was a student. And I was like, no, can I wash dishes for my dinner type of thing and work it off? And he goes, I don't know if you really know where you are right now. That's not really what we're going for. And I was like, no worries. And the next day, he declined me my membership. And I said, is there any chance that I can work for you guys? Like, if you need anything done, let me know. I'm eager to get my hands dirty. And he goes, sure, email me next month. I said, okay. Emailed him next month, nothing. Emailed next month, nothing. Month 3, I emailed, instead of the first of the month, I emailed on the 30th of August, I think it was. And he goes, do you know anything about Zapier? And I said, no, but I've always wanted to learn. He said, great. Here are my Zapier credentials. I need these 5 things automated. Have at it. And I was like, okay, game's on. So just kind of taught myself Zapier documentation, the forums, everything, built those 5, built the next 10. And then that's what got me the first contract. So first employee at Hampton.
Yeah, I love a few things about that story. Number one, the fact that you showed up to something even though you knew that you didn't really qualify. You were like, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring anyway and see what happens. The fact that you knew there was opportunity there and you weren't afraid to work for it and be persistent and follow up. And then just the fact that you saw something that you knew you were kind of passionate about and that you wanted to learn about and basically just offered to help for free. Now, I know that that's a timing thing in terms of career. I'm not suggesting that people who are sort of 10, 15 years into their career and have big names on their portfolio take this approach. But I do still think there are things that we can learn from the earlier days in our career or the younger versions of ourselves that if we brought into our philosophy of how we run our business today would make us much more successful. And I think there are some real key elements there regarding just persistence and follow-up and value and curiosity and genuine interest of like, hey, I just want to help. Like, I just want to be involved in this thing in some way. What does it need to look like? And I think we kind of go through these phases in our career where we do that at the start and it gets us a certain way. And then we've been doing something for a while, say 3, 5, maybe even 10 years, and we get better and better and better. And then we kind of feel like we're too good to do that anymore. Like we're too good to go and work for free, or we're too good to, like, we don't need to follow up with these people because, they should be coming to us kind of thing. And at least in my experience, I think there's just like a lot of opportunities that are missed through that way of thinking. And I watched an episode of The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett where he was interviewing, I think it was Davina McCall. And she is like a very successful host in the UK, right? And she has been in the industry for years and years and years. And she was talking about, there was this idea she had for a show and she went and pitched it. I think it was to ITV and they kind of said, no, I don't think this is going to work. And she basically like went and did it. She went and created like a kind of like a test version of it. And she basically put it all together and then went back and said, look, this is what I think it could be. And I just thought it was fascinating that in our minds, I think we imagine somebody who's really successful at the top of their game to just have all of the opportunities, like all of the stuff that they could want. But sometimes it's not exactly what we want to be doing. And sometimes we actually just have to go and actively pitch something and actively like work and create something to show people what we're capable of in this new arena or this new way of thinking in order to actually get traction.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a skill that you want someone to notice, do the skill for them so they notice. It sounds so simple when you put it that way, but I completely agree. Putting yourself out there, it's like, it'd be awesome if leads were just falling from the sky. But if you're busy enough, then this probably isn't a problem for you. If you're not busy enough, then you have time to give it a shot, right? And I was actually talking to someone who's at the beginning of his career and he wanted to do Facebook ads. And I said, okay, you want to do Facebook ads? Do you have any, like, have you done this before? And he's like, nah, kind of on Photoshop or whatever. I said, okay, how about you try to make some Facebook ads for a company that you like? and let's see if they respond, right? It's going to take a few hours of your time, but you might get a legit job out of it, and like, this guy's fresh out of college. He goes, yeah, but I don't know how. I said, okay, well, when you feel like you've iterated enough that you would show someone, then you've figured out how, and it's pretty easy to find an email address these days. So we narrowed down a company that he liked. It was like a chocolate company. I said, awesome, go make 4 ads. Not only will you get better at the skill that you want to pursue as a career, but you also might get a job out of this. And if you do it 5 times, you'll get 5 different, psychology practice frames of mind and how you're going to think about this. And you can use ChatGPT to iterate on ideas and like go and create the thing. And that is doing the work, like shapes you, it shapes your brain, it makes you stronger, but it also allows you to get opened up to more opportunities. And so I think whenever we can, leading with value will be a beneficial thing for us, whether that is on the social platforms or delivering something. Like when someone books a call, I'm working on an automation right now that it goes to their website and it makes a company primer prompt. So anytime you're going to use ChatGPT, here's a little thing to add on to your first message. That way it knows what your company is, who it does, who it serves, etc. And that's just from scraping the website. It costs 45 cents to like run that prompt, or probably much less. But that is just one little token of, hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm trying to do something helpful for you, using my skill for you. And I think this can be applied at any level of our experience. It really just takes the ability to step back and say, okay, how can I be valuable to the next person that knows about Grandpa?
Yeah. And that's a really good example of how AI and automation can enhance personalization and that relationship building, rather than like, it's not trying to replace it. It's just like this extra little token, this extra thing that we can do for somebody that just makes them feel like we're, like you said, like we're thinking about them and we're actually considering them and like what they're up to in the world, basically. So let's talk a little bit about client onboarding, because we just mentioned this idea of kind of personalization and how AI can really enhance that. What are some things that you do with people to help them, I guess, streamline their onboarding, but more importantly, make that as good as possible so that clients stick around?
This is one of the most fun parts of our work because it's probably the most creative that we can be. And the reason that you have to be creative in this section is because I really want that first 24 hours, the first 30 minutes of a contract signed or an invoice paid or whatever we're going to think of as closed won. How can we make that like an absolute banger 30 minutes of trust building, right? It's like, what can we tell them that's going to show them that they made the right choice in choosing us? And so whether there's an onboarding form that they have to fill out, and I'm actually going through this right now with a lead. It's like they've got an onboarding form, very comprehensive. How many clients do you have? Who do you serve? What do you serve them with, et cetera? That is rich information. Pair that with what's on their website. And now you've got a situation where you can, do market positioning with AI and do the like 5 drafts or 10 drafts. And with good prompting, you can get value to them instantly, right? And it's okay for them to know that a human didn't do it. It's just to show them, hey, we're thinking about you, right? We're doing things, we've created things that are going to make you see that we are experts in our field. And so client onboarding is a really fun area to automate because you can think about what are the pieces of information I have available to me. We have their website through their email domain. Okay, great. Maybe that's a minimum. At a maximum, there's an onboarding form or an onboarding call. Okay, let's pair all these things together. So at a maximum, we have a transcript from an onboarding call, a form entry, and a website. Now, what is the service you provide? What can we create with AI that's available to us now? That is going to be something that they're going to go, wow, this is really nice. And you can also make AI welcome videos. You can make little animations. Like the options are truly endless. So it's the question or the prompt I give to the person at home listening to this is like, what is the value that I'm providing to people? What is the service I provide? And what is the minimum information I need as a human to go and generate something valuable? Let's try to make that a part of the onboarding process that happens automatically, because that is going to set them up and say, wow, I made the right choice. This is the agency for me. They really are taking it, going the extra mile. I highly encourage everyone to go through that thought exercise because it's a really great way to set up an engagement for success, increase customer lifetime value, retention, relationship building, all of it is beneficial just from the first 24 hours.
I think it's a great question as well to even think about what could you create as a lead magnet, because your lead magnet is really a great example of that, right? It's like, how could I actually give some people some free posts based on a conversation they've had with a client or a conversation they've had with a prospect? So I think that question is very much worth considering. If we zoom out for a second and we think about how to do this in the most sequential way that would allow me to get impact, i.e., do more work in my zone of genius, what are the stages of this? So before you answer that question, let me give you a typical use case that I come across. So let's say solo founder wants to grow their business, maybe has a bank of freelancers typically there to deliver the work versus actually like go out and make sales. And they are just feeling really overwhelmed. Like they are stuck in the weeds. They are still required for delivery. And behind the scenes, the business feels like, one of my clients described it to me as like a Wizard of Oz. It's like a bit of a Wizard of Oz business. It's kind of, in lots of different parts, and every time it's slightly different. Where do I start as somebody like that, a founder that's overwhelmed, has a small team, but really wants to grow into something, like wants to evolve into a real founder with a real business that is independent of me? And I'm just kind of talking from like an AI/automation point of view, not you need to refine your offer and do your niche and all of that kind of stuff.
The source of truth that you need to nail is, are we delivering great work, right? Great work will lead to referrals, and you can get good case studies. Even if you have one client, but you do a great job and they tell someone or they say something nice about you, extremely beneficial to the company. So when I look at this as someone who wants to grow and they're stuck in the weeds and they've got contractors, chances are that the fulfillment is kind of a mess. Like in the Wizard of Oz situation, it's like you wake up at the end of the week and you're like, oh, thank God that got done. Don't know how, don't know when it got delegated, but somehow, some way it's done. That's great. The best thing that you can spend your time on is thinking through project management, because that's the engine of the business. So the Alex Hormozi parallel is like, if you double your marketing spend, do you have double the business, like double the revenue, or do you have a fire on your hands? And if you have a fire on your hands, then you have there's a problem with supply. And so that supply is your team, how well you fulfill the product or the service. So when you think about this, I think the best process is to really lay down paper and pencil, flow chart, lucid chart, whimsical, whatever you want to do. Do a flow chart of when someone signs or when it's marked as close won to when your number one deliverable is complete. And so to break this down even further, let's say the number one deliverable is 10 Facebook ads. Okay. What are all the steps that need to go through creating 10 Facebook ads? Well, we're probably going to need to audit their account. We're going to need to understand what are their brand guidelines. We're going to need to understand what is their product. What have they tried in the past? What are we trying to do in the future? What position do they want to take? So there's a lot of collecting information. Then there's going to be first drafts and revisions. Then there's going to be sharing it to the client, getting approval, and then whether you are also doing the paid campaigns, launching the paid campaigns. But let's just focus on the creative. So inside of each of those, there are buckets of work, and I call them milestones. So you're looking for the buckets or the milestones to chart out. So first one would be assessment or audit of the current situation, collection of data, so collection of brand guidelines, et cetera. Drafting and revising, I would put that as one, so creating assets, and then external approval. Those are going to be the 4 steps to actually launch a new client. And you're going to want to do that for each of your deliverables. You don't have to think about auditing every time, but like, what are all the different services that you provide? What are all those different deliverables? Break them into milestones and clean up the project management system. Because you do want the situation to be like, we all want to double our revenue. But if you get 2 times the number of clients tomorrow and you're freaking out, you probably didn't prioritize the right thing first. And a lot of people tell me, well, project management isn't on fire right now. I've had people literally say that to me. Oh, it's not on fire right now. I'm dealing with things that are on fire. I go, okay, I get that. But it's much better to be proactive when we can be than reactive all the time. And if you're just going from reactive to reactive to reactive, you will burn out. You will have a terrible time. You won't have fun. And business can be fun, I promise. So long-winded way of saying, if you're in this situation where you don't really know how things are getting done and you also don't know if they meet your quality standard, really focus on project management because that's the lifeblood of your company. If you get one client per quarter, but you knock it out of the park, that compounds, right? So really nail the fulfillment. And Alex Hormozi calls it like working back to front. So nailing fulfillment, then nail onboarding, then sales, then marketing. Because if you juice marketing and everything else is already lined up, you will be flowing people through and you'll have confidence. And that is just a process that takes time. And even before fulfillment, you might have to do some work on your offer. Like I did, took 9-10 months to figure out what I was actually selling. So just know people have been there before. I work with 35-person agencies. They still have problems with project management. So if you nail it early, you'll be much, much happier.
And how do I know, like once I've done that, how do I know what out of those things can be automated or can be leveraged with AI?
So then you're going to want to go to zapier.com/apps. And that is just the base, I think the best database on the internet to see what can be automated in my tools. So when you press enter on that in your nav bar, there's going to be a little search bar at the top. I was on this last night. I look at this page almost every day. And you can type in things like Google Sheets, Gmail, Slack, HubSpot. There are over 8,000 connections on Zapier. So it's the best source of data to see what can be automated for the average, layman who's not super technical. So type in your tools, scroll to the bottom, and there's going to be a section that says triggers, actions, or both. There is going to be the if-then statements. Triggers are the if, actions are the then. Okay. So if I get a new lead form filled out on Webflow or MailChimp or whatever your form builder is, if a new lead form is submitted, then send me an email and send them an email. Okay, super easy, right? Very to the point. So using this if-then framework is how you're going to level up your understanding of what can be automated. Go to your tech stack, go to zapier.com/apps, if-then statements. That will show you what's possible. Then you actually have to get your hands dirty, create a Zapier account. You have to pay for it, unfortunately, because the free tier is not that great. But start building things, start trying to connect things. And that is where you're going to be able to find those connection points.
And I believe your project management tool of choice is ClickUp. Am I right?
That is true.
Yeah. So we spent a long, long time trying to figure out what project management tool to use because we wanted something that worked internally, but we also wanted something that worked for our clients. And so now every single one of our clients has a ClickUp folder just for them. And honestly, it's been a game changer for like the coaching and being able to track what's going on. They all have their own metrics dashboard now. So we can see like how many leads they generated this month, like what their revenue was, what their profit was, what their stress levels are, all kinds of things like that. So it's been like an absolute game changer. Obviously, for people who aren't really sure, the easiest piece of advice is go use ClickUp. How easy is it to do things like this with other tools like Monday and Asana and things like that?
They all have their different kind of layouts in terms of where you're going to find the information you're looking for. I direct people to ClickUp for a few reasons. One, you can make those external facing pages super helpful. Making a folder for every client. If you go into ClickUp, please make a folder for each client. Super good best practice. But the value is that ClickUp made it really easy to see the hierarchy, to say your workspace is your company, and the spaces are the departments. So quick win, fulfillment is all your delivery stuff. You can call delivery, fulfillment, clients, whatever you want. Each of those has a folder for a client. Okay. Then you have growth, which is marketing and sales and anything else that you want to put in there. And then operations. You really only need 3. But they did a very good job of showing the space or the workspace to the space, departments, spaces to folders, and then folders to tasks. And the way that ClickUp is set up is that if you go to a folder, you have access to all the data that's underneath it, which is extremely helpful as a solo founder or as someone who's managing a team. Being able to see all the data that exists below a certain level in one dashboard is something that I don't think any of the other tools like a Monday or Asana, and especially not Notion. I'm not going to get too hateful on Notion, but I'm not a huge fan for project management. Long story short, the ability to roll up all that information to different levels of the hierarchy, extremely valuable as you scale. And also, when you use this milestone approach that we talked about earlier with like thinking about your deliverables as buckets of work, if you take that and apply it at ClickUp, then you can see a progress bar that shows how close am I to finishing the audit process by a percentage on a little chart and on a little progress bar. So helpful when you put that next to the due date. Chef's kiss of project management. It's like the best thing ever. So that's why we push people towards ClickUp, is because you get just a few of these little features, right? It's the same thing about being helpful. It's like just a few little things that really make a huge difference. That progress bar is like, it's like 3 slides on my deck about ClickUp. I love it.
Okay. I was sold before, but I'm even more sold now. Grant, what's something that we haven't spoken about today that you think my listeners need to hear?
I think we touched on it, but I really want to hit it home because I've been using this expression of take an inch, give a mile, which I don't know if there's an expression where you're from, but it's like you give an inch and someone takes a mile, right? So you give them a chocolate bar to take a bite and they just eat the whole thing. Okay, shoot, I don't have a chocolate bar anymore. But what AI allows us to do is to take an inch and give a mile. And I love this concept because as we talked about with onboarding, or as we talked about it with lead magnets, I really want to hit home that everyone listening to this has a unique skill. Whether you are starting out or you're just a new creative or you're an experienced agency owner, you have a unique skill and your team offers a unique skill. AI allows you to amplify that. So if you can take an inch, the minimum required information, and really think, how minimalistic can this be? Like a website URL, you can do so much with now. So taking that website URL, or taking that, like, what's your goal with Facebook ads? Taking that one little inch and trying to provide a mile's worth of value with AI, ideally automatically, the trust factor just goes through the roof. And if it's something where they weren't even expecting it, like when they book a call or when they download for us, it's like download ClickUp cheat sheets, and all of a sudden you get access to, call to content, or you get access to a prompt for you to use in the future. It's like anything we can do to give a mile with AI, I think it's worth everybody's time investment to figure that out, because the cost investment is so minimal. Running any of these prompts, everything is less than like 50 cents. Just go for it, right? So I really encourage everyone to build that trust factor so that when someone commits their email address to you and says, I think that you have something valuable to say, shove value down their throat, because AI can do that now, and you are going to be so much better off. Your client relationships are going to be better off. People are going to talk about you when you don't even know about it. Then you're going to get referrals, and all the good things happen. So take an inch, give a mile. I think that is how I'm trying to really focus all of my top of funnel efforts all the way through.
That's actually changed my perspective on AI slightly. I think I've been using it in quite an introspective and selfish way with ChatGPT, like trying to figure stuff out. I don't think I've found that many ways to use it right now to give value. And that's just kind of inspired me. Like this idea that you can take an inch of data that you know about somebody and give a mile of value has kind of changed the way that I think about giving value. Because typically, especially in the coaching world, giving lots of value is in things like, I'm currently writing my second book. Well, that's a lot of fucking effort. Like, it's hardcore, man. And like, yeah, I could have given it some prompts and like AI could have written my book, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be me and I wanted it to come from me. But the idea that it's almost free or very low cost in terms of that value. So for example, one of the ideas I've got at the moment is to like write that book, but then create a tool with that book. So when people buy it, they go to the website, they can chat almost like with the book, and they can talk about their current situation and their business, and it will actually point out, okay, you should go read this chapter, or you should look at this resource. So yeah, that's really cool. I love that concept. When I think about AI, I'm now thinking about take an inch and give a mile of value. That's really cool. I love that. Grant, this conversation has been a pleasure. I know it won't be our last. Where can people connect with you if they want to have a conversation? Where do you hang out online?
Yeah, best place for me is LinkedIn. It's where I spend most of my social media time. So yeah, Grant Hushek, I'm the only one. So easy to find. And then our website is grantbot.co.
Awesome. We will put all of those links in the show note. Grant, thank you so much for being a guest on the Creative Courage podcast today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.